The Trine. Not this again. Pontious!
Amadeus, get your things! We need to save the kingdom!
Trine was one of those PC gems from 2009 that steadily spread in popularity. With its classic side-scrolling combat and intricate puzzle design, it was impossible not to appreciate the amount of detail that was showcased. Selling over 400,000 copies across PSN and PC, Trine 2 soon followed, offering a more polished look, new puzzles, and frogs. Is it enough to top the original, or is it another sequel that fails to live up to the hype?
Once upon a time, there were 3 valiant heroes, chosen by a magical artifact called the Trine. You may have heard another tale of how they met.
Trine 2 continues the story of 3 unlikely heroes bound together by a mythical artifact, the Trine. There's Amadeus, the very cowardly wizard, Zoya, the witty and agile thief, and Pontious, the less than intelligent knight.
Oh, that looks dangerous.
The story is told through the occasional ominous cutscene, found note, or witty banter between the heroes as they progress. Despite these elements, it's the narration that gives the feeling of playing out a classic fable rather than some event that's evolving in real time. Coupled with a perfectly tuned original soundtrack to match the feel of the game, the presentation is way above any typical side-scroller.
The heroic 3 had made their way through the traps and terrors of the strange treehouse.
Though the story is basic, the visual appeal of the game is anything but. Each level in the game is visually stunning as backdrops and lighting bring the 2D platformer to life. Vivid purples and blues complement the darker areas, and rays of orange light peek through tree branches and sunsets. Each new level is like an acid trip through a color wheel, and textures and animations never fail to impress. Gameplay in Trine 2 is very similar to the first installment, and 2D side-scroller veterans will feel right at home as you tackle combat, platforming, and various other puzzles. You're able to take control of all 3 characters and switch between them with the press of a button. The constant shuffle of characters is highly encouraged, as each one has a benefit to tackle any situation that arises. The wizard has the ability to conjure platforms by drawing shapes with the mouse, but is vulnerable in combat. The thief is key for platforming with a grappling hook to swing across pits and a bow to take out enemies from afar, and the knight is the go-to for combat with sword and shield in hand and a warhammer to clear out boulders. The balance makes for a constant switch between characters to adapt for each situation as it presents itself. You could technically get through most of the game with one sole character, but their usefulness in each dilemma warrants variation. The platforming is made even more interesting by an in-depth physics engine. You will stumble across many puzzles that consist of transporting water from one source to another destination, using portals to transport objects or players, and many other puzzles that are quite challenging and cleverly designed. Though enjoyable at the start, by the 6th stage you start to feel more like a plumber and less like a hero. The typical approach of moving from point A to point B is much less strict in this title, as a number of situations dare you to challenge the physics engine to construct a way past each puzzle in an unintended manner.
This is going to require timing.
Intruders! Do you think we'll have to fight them?
Between these platforming sequences are the combat encounters. Hordes of goblins, spiders, and other monstrosities will relentlessly throw themselves at you to heed your progress. While you may rely on the knight for these sequences, the thief and wizard can both hold their own with enough practice. Boss encounters are occasional, but beyond the final encounter, it's nothing a few mouse clicks won't solve. Scattered throughout the game are small blue orbs and flasks that gradually level your character as you grab them. Some are dropped from enemies, others strewn across the path, and most are dangled just out of reach. These shiny distractions will leave you attempting a jump again and again, but they are well worth the investment. Every 50 orbs collected grants you a skill point. These can be invested into one of the 3 characters to upgrade their current weaponry or add new abilities. The wizard can spawn multiple platforms at once, the knight will add a flame sword to his arsenal, and the thief can fire explosive arrows. These upgrades become plentiful as the game wears on, but it's important to spread the wealth and not invest too much into a single character. Acting as a totally different experience altogether, the cooperative multiplayer is where the game stands out. All 3 heroes are now out at one time and must work together to help each other through each puzzle. It adds a bit more challenge and thinking to the mix, with each hero playing their respective role to progress the obstacles ahead. Though you could still leave your friend behind and they'll warp to you eventually, they'll probably try to push you off the nearest cliff. 3 heroes at once also means opportunity for platforming assistance. The wizard can levitate his platforms with the other player on top, the knight can block harmful vents, and even act as an additional boost. It's this unique feeling of camaraderie that the single player lacks, and makes the multiplayer the prime way to experience the story. Despite the stunning presentation, the short story is very short. Clocking in at a mere 6 hours, it won't be long before your adventure is already at an end. Diehards have reason to go back and find all the collectibles, but even that fails to really extend the life of the game. Checkpoints are plentiful, and combat is easily thwarted by hopping in and out to restore health or lost characters. Enemy types tend to stick toward the goblin side, and there's very few variations that you'll find near the end of the game.
Dare come into my lair? Crush them!
Trine 2 stays true to the formula and risks little in expanding beyond what was already established, but there's little issue with that. Infinitely satisfying gameplay and amazing visuals will keep you entertained from beginning to end. It's an adventure game unlike any other, and a fantastic download to close out the year.
They're called coconuts. So there's some huge hairy nuts? No, they're fruit. Shouldn't they be called cocoa fruit then? I don't know.